look, hopefully. Okay. So let's look at page 38 real quick. 38. Okay, so we've already had this on a quiz, and you remember this from your reading. The 5 W's, very important to think about when you're especially reporting news on an event, when you're interviewing somebody who was witness to something. You have to think about the 5 W's, the who, what, when, where, why, and then the how, the H, right? So let's look at these. Which of these do you think is the most important, the 5 W's? Okay, the what. It is the what. This is great, some creative thinkers, because without a what, even if the what happens to someone who's big, even if it happened at an inopportune time or immediately, without a what, it's not news. So if you look at that, for instance, Steve Jobs dies. Of course, they might do a profile on him anyway because he was famous, but the fact that he died, that's news, right? So that's a what. Second one, self-explanatory. Voices of the boycott. This is like an anniversary thing, right? So if without there actually being a boycott, the what, then there would be no reason to have an anniversary or have this special issue, right? And then the where, that can be, there's an exception. But then getting down to the why, this is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Without there being a conflict, then there wouldn't need to be a why. Do you see what I mean? So the what is usually the most important of the 5 W's and 1 H. What would be maybe the least important? I'm just going to tell you to avoid embarrassing anyone. Usually it's the when. When is important, but it's usually, especially in like a hard news article or a breaking news thing, it's usually not the very first thing in a sentence. Okay, big rookie mistake to start off a sentence like, on Friday, the student government president stepped down because of his poor grades. You wouldn't say on Friday is the very first thing in the sentence because you'll lose, it's not the most important thing. So you can stick it in there later in the sentence, maybe at the end of the sentence. The student government president stepped down because of grades on Friday, but you wouldn't put it at the very first part of the sentence usually. Again, there are exceptions to that, but usually you would not. But at any rate, the one you're emphasizing goes first. Of the 5 W's, 1 H, the one that you're emphasizing goes first, all right? And it usually is the who and the what, because you need a subject for the sentence, and then the what is often the object. Ones that are usually not, or not usually, that are often not in an article are the 5 W's and the 1 H. Perhaps a news article about breaking news like a bank robbery or maybe a natural disaster or maybe some sort of crime or okay, the why, yes. So we don't often have the why, not yet anyway, right? And something, a breaking news thing, especially involving crime, involving accidents, involving, there has to be a whole report, right, done, and a whole, the person has to be interviewed, and there might be a trial, right? Any others? The how, yeah. Often we don't know the how. So you think about this Malaysia plane that they've found the voice recorders, and they found some people strapped in their seats, right? They found about 60 bodies now, and they finally found some of these answers, right? Days after it happened. What was the why? Why did the plane go down? Anyone notice the news about that? Important news. The weather, but more specifically, that one guy, Sully, the guy who landed the plane in the Hudson, he was interviewed, and he explained that usually it's not a single thing like weather. It's a series of events. It's a series of events that actually lead to a plane crash, right? And so it's decisions. A lot of it has to do with decisions by the pilots.
Was it also like mechanical failure?
No, it was not mechanical failure. It had to do with what the choices they made, the pilots made. They brought the plane up really steep, really fast, and then it stalled. So it could be mechanical failure, but it's likely pilot error, okay? Because that would lead to a plane stalling, just forcing the plane to head nothing. It said that they acted like it was a fighter jet. This is a large passenger plane. It's like 170 people. They really have no business trying to do these fancy maneuvers, and they were trying to get out of the weather, but this was not how to do it. If they had done a slow ascent, maybe the people would still be alive. I mean, it was pilot error. Now, thinking about that why, what would be really important, just more than just us being curious about the why that plane went down, in terms of the airline? That particular plane, though, once they know it's pilot error, then they're going to be paying out hefty sums to the family members, aren't they? So that's one big reason they have to do these investigations. And they're probably insured for this, but they've had 3 planes go down in the course of a year. So that's a lot of planes from that one airline. Okay, and some of them were not pilot error. But we don't know the one because they've never found the one plane. Went down the ocean off of Australia, so they can't do the how and the why. Okay. All right, so that's a really good 2-page explanation of the who, what, when, where, why, and how, and you want to make sure to look at that. And by the way, when I call your attention to the reading like this in class, that's a safe bet to maybe write that down in your notes that she called attention to these pages, because I'm giving you kind of the review sheet for the test. I don't actually give out a review sheet, by the way. It's moments like these that I'm telling you I'm going to be really focusing on this stuff for the test. So you want to really make a note of that. Next 2 pages also, page 40 and 41. Really important section here on the inverted pyramid. All right, so on your quiz, you did pretty well with this. I wish the explanation in this could be a little better. But the inverted pyramid looks like that. You might be asked to draw the inverted pyramid on the test. So you may want to practice in your notes. Okay, we start with the lead. The most important information here, right? Okay, the key facts. Okay, so we usually try to get in the most important W's and H in there, right? And then we go to lesser important information, lesser, and then the least important. Now, notice they call this details, and that's a little misleading. It needs to be more specific that the most important details would be at the beginning, right? And then less detail. Now, why do they do this? There's 2 big reasons they do this. Okay, now please remember these 2 reasons. 2 reasons they do this. They write articles in this way. So this is not chronological, by the way, right? This is not a chronological article. They're given the punchline before they give the joke in a way here, right? They're given the end of the story before they tell the beginning, right? They're kind of giving it away. All right, so there's reasons we do this. What's one of the 2 reasons? What's one of the 2 reasons? What do you think, Michael?
One of the 2 reasons that you give it away?
Well, they write an inverted pyramid style. Why do we write using this style? But why? Why not make it I don't want to know if I'm reading a novel, I'm not going to read the last page. I know some of us probably are like that, right? I want to have the suspense in there and all this. Why would they do it this way?
I guess to get readers' attention at the beginning.
Okay. That's exactly right. That's one of the reasons. Very good. Readers have short attention span. Remember that went on at length the last few times ago about readers? We've got to hook in the readers or they're going to stop reading, right? This is one of the main problems with the Bengal newspaper. I hate to say it. Last time I had a main reporter in the class, so I did not say this. But they don't write very good leads. So do you find yourself reading the article? Maybe not. The article is in the Bengal newspaper. They need to hook the reader in, and this is why I kept telling you on your papers, hook us in. Go right into the most interesting detail, right in the lead, because why else will we read the article if we're not interested from the very first sentence, right? So readers, and this is a reader sort of focused reason, right? We're focused on readers. It's not about you. It's not about you writing well. It's not about you being able to tell a story. It's about, will readers read this? Will readers read your story? That's what it's about. Okay, the second one has to do with editors. It's the editor's focus reason. That should be a good hint. Yes, Kaylee. Yes. Okay, so I can only fit this much of an article in. Imagine these are paragraphs. And so we're going to leave off these facts, right? So editors can trim from the bottom. That's the other reason. We like to write in the inverted pyramid style for readers, right? Not for ourselves, but for readers and for editors, so they can cut from the bottom, and nothing will have to be rewritten. They just cut it from the bottom. Now, that's a very practical reason, and it's easy to forget that when you get around to the test, so make sure you memorize these. This is one of the reasons why you're not going to write this really beautiful conclusion paragraph, right, because it's not an essay. You're used to doing that in composition, maybe. We don't do that in news writing. Now, you might write a nice quote at the end that kind of sums it up, like maybe you did for your feature interview of the classmate. Okay. All right, so on the bottom of that page, page 40, do you see there's a comparison? I love that they did this because this is a really good way of driving on the point. The chronological story. Okay, you might want to asterisk that. This is really good. This is kind of an interesting story. Can somebody read this? Who would be willing to read this little story, the chronological version of the same events? Good, thank you. It's a long thing, I know. Okay, really interesting news event here, right? Lots of things going on. And so, this is the chronology of it. There's a lot of drama and suspense here. Kind of makes a good story, right? If this were a story you're telling around the campfire or something. Kind of sad for the dog and the man. But in inverted pyramids, don't look yet, but we usually give the most updated information first, right? And again, we're thinking about the reader. What would the reader be interested in this situation? Okay, so thinking back about the story, you live in the community, you care about what? The guys on the loose, right? So going to the inverted pyramid version of the same events, someone willing to read this? Carly, would you be willing to read this? Okay, see, that's completely different. Same facts, different order. Do you see how they could cut that last paragraph, even though it's an interesting paragraph, and they would still have the basics of the story, the most pertinent stuff for today, right now, right? They could be a little news brief. Could end it with serving a 10-year sentence when he escaped. All right, and if someone's interested in that, they can go find it for themselves. They could go find the other stories related to that. Okay, so really good example. Remember that the inverted pyramid is not chronological. When we get to the martini style, that combines, the martini glass style, it combines both the inverted pyramid style and a chronology. But we won't talk about that yet. You're going to read that in the next section. On page 42, you may have read this and gotten a good chuckle from this. It starts, some journalism teachers insist that a story's lead must be one paragraph, must be one sentence, and must be 30 words or less. I'm afraid to tell you, I am one of those teachers. Okay, now, I will say this, when you're in a upper level class or a middle level class, that's fine. Features, you're typically more than one sentence. But for the purpose of this class, yes, the lead must be one sentence, and it must be the first paragraph and only one sentence. The paragraph must be only one sentence, right? And 30 words or less, I'm a little flexible about that, but that is the hard and fast rule a lot of people use. Okay, then down on the bottom, another important term. A lot of people miss this on the test. Bury the lead. Very good example. We had this on the quiz. Very good example here of burying the lead. PTA meeting, you think it's just a meeting article, and then halfway through, one woman takes a gun out of her handbag, kills another woman at the meeting. That's crazy, right? And yet they buried it way deep in the story. That goes at the beginning, right? People are going to read that story. And very few people probably read, this was an actual story. That's hard to believe. But very few people probably read that until other people said, you know what really happened at that meeting? Okay. All right, so then on page 42, we have a really good little column there. How do you write an effective news lead? Well, obviously, you need to know all your facts, right? So 5 W's and 1 H. Prioritize the 5 W's and 1 H. You can't have all of them usually in one lead. That's too long. Or it's obvious. You're constantly writing, especially the lead, especially the headline. You constantly are rewriting these things. And so when we do little exercises in here, and if we have time, we probably won't get to it. Oh, we might. Where I give you a set of facts, you write a lead. If you hand it in, and I may have you hand it in, I want to see the splotches on that exercise, right? Because you should have a lot of versions of that lead, especially starting out. You should be writing and rewriting your lead. All right, so knowing these things, let's do a little exercise from the book to you and have you do it. See how well you were paying attention. Yes, here it is. Okay, so you'll want to make sure to hold on to this because you are going to be doing some of the other exercises too. These might be pretty good leads, but you're choosing the best lead and what's wrong with the others. You need to decide what's wrong with the other version.